Chapter 2, February 15th, 2008. The scientists stood solemn in front of me with grim looks on each of their faces. 3 men who I knew were Jay, Jack, and David were talking amongst each other. I just knew it was them. Something inside solidified and molded the fact to my brain. Just as I knew I was watching a scene play out that was a year past the incident that caused the girl's death. Megan. I was remembering my time here more clearly. True memories instead of dark things to feel haunted by. The haunting feelings still persisted, don't get me wrong. There are definite ghosts that haunt these halls, and I fear I'm looking at a few of them now. So, Greg and Mason are gone. Jack had the most puzzling look on his face. His hair was chopped short. It looked like a personal job out of haste. Salt and pepper colored the face that had seemed more stressed than most. Yet, the expression that painted his gaze was anger. Jack, the one whose words I'd heard the most clear throughout all the notes, was all by accounts a timid individual, always preoccupied of what others thought of him. It wasn't in his nature, at least I believe, to be so front and direct. There's something different about him. His whole demeanor shifts uneasily. He looks to be completely fine physically, but he looks different somehow.
Ran off to New York,
David said with an air of contempt in his voice. He was scratching the back of his head fervently. It's not a plot against you, Jay said, nervous. This isn't some conspiracy. I'm not wholeheartedly surprised regardless, Jack said. Spineless and not at all worth the work.
Greg's always been that way.
Dave, what do you mean? Jay looked at the other with concern in his face. You've never thought that. David brushed him off.
Oh, come on. He's always been the spineless one. Can't even handle his kid right.
David quickly looked to Jack as he realized his slip. Luckily, Jack was deep in his own thoughts. His back now turned to the both of them.
We're better off,
David called him. Jay was shaking his head. They couldn't do it anymore. That's it. I don't blame them. They were sick of the lies, the pain they caused. Oh, now they're sick, Jack barked back. The veins on his forehead popped out of nowhere. His face was beet red. They weren't sick of the pain they put me through when Greg threw me in that makeshift gas chamber. Both of them weren't here for the work. They only aimed to suss out the outsider, play their high school bullshit, and look what happened. Now, Jack, I understand what they did wasn't right, Jay said, his hands held defensively. Don't think I don't remember you not stopping them, the both of you, Jack said. You're just as culpable for what happened that day. Yes, Jay begins. I understand the part I played in the accident. A fact I don't hide from anybody. That's why I'm here, to make up for the...
It only happened because Greg was the head of the project, sir. Now that you're in charge, we have more freedom to do with as we please.
And that I am glad for, David. You're working your way towards my forgiveness. Now, Jay, you have quite a bit of work to do before you get to that point. Yes, sir. Jay nods, but the look itself confused me. I stood there staring at this group dynamic that confused and only piled on questions to the increasingly growing mountain of already existing ones. Just why was Jay so... First things first, we're going to continue testing. Jack turned and started walking, shocking both of the other scientists into following behind him. And we don't stop until I get satisfactory results. Continue? Jay asked, picking up the momentum to catch up. Jack looked to Jay, not slowing down a moment. I had to pick up my own pace to follow them. Jack had a wild smile across his face. Yes, it is quite unfortunate that Greg and Mason couldn't be here to see this.
Something tells me you have a solution with that smile,
David said. I do, and it involves Jennifer. Jack said. You're going to test on her? I am. We are. I've also got work to do to get an extra pair of hands around here. What does that mean? Jay asked. I'm in the process of transferring over one of the guys from the East Coast over here. His name's Sal Moon, and I think he'll be a good amount of help, Jack said.
Right,
David said, unconvinced. It should take a few months for the process to fully go through, Jack said. And what if he doesn't agree with your ideals, Jack? Jay asked. Jack looks to Jay with a serious sort of... Well then, we'll just have to kill him. He laughs, and the look of the horror on Jay's face Gross to tell me this isn't some dark humor that's shared between them. I know dark humor. I practically exude this stuff. I think this qualifies to tell me that this was serious. This wasn't a threat. It was an inevitability. The world around me filled in like a painting. The color started to fade and drip down to the ground. As I made contact, the droplets changed color and bounced across the floor and the walls until the vision changed before my very eyes. Chapter 3, April 20th, 2007. The walls were broken down to reveal a blue sky above, an expanse of what looked to be a park. I didn't recognize it, but I could tell by the time had gone backward. I was viewing earlier memory. Still, after the accident, but before my father moved out east with Mason. Speak of the devils, I glanced at Jay, Mason, and my father having lunch at a table far from the other park visitors. They're in plainclothes, but 3 old men sitting huddled together at the park is an odd sight even here. I wonder why I think that. Is it because I know these people are part of, or some other hidden prejudice inside me? The thought was almost tantalizing to analyze before I tuned into what they were talking about. Guys, I can't do this anymore. Jay has his head in his hands. The remnant of a sandwich left aside on the table. He digs his fingers into his skull and lets out a sound of dejected frustration. I told you again and again that you shouldn't have been pricks to Jack. My father sighs. Yeah, I know. I fucked up. He's in the hospital and his kid is dead because of my personal agenda. And I have to live with that. What are you gonna do? Jay asked. What I should have done in the first place, before all of this nonsense. I should have gone with Lorraine to New York. Dude, she cheated on you. You know what kind of can of worms that would open up now? Jay said. My attention is immediately pulled toward my father. I didn't know this. I knew my parents weren't together before they died, obviously. I'd spent most of my time with my father, but this was the reason why? What, really? Mason asked. Yeah, it happened 2 years ago with some guy she met online, my father said to Mason. He turns back to Jay. Yeah, well, I have to put my personal feelings aside. I need to make sure Gavin is safe, and he will be in New York. As awful a partner as she isn't an awful mother. He can be safe there. Safe? Safe from what? Mason asked. When my father doesn't answer, I see the concern start to grow in Mason's eyes. Safe from what, Greg? From Jack. This catches them off guard. What do you mean? Jay asked. Back in the hospital, when we were visiting Jack, I felt something really strange when you two stepped out. What do you mean? Mason asked. I can't really explain it, but it was just me and David in there with him, and I felt this rush of... Of what? Jay looks to him. Of fear. I don't really know how it happened, but even though he was unconscious, I could feel him. Jack, that is. Right next to me. I could feel him. His anger. That's strange, Mason said. Maybe that's your conscience speaking out? No, not anything like that, my father said. This was physical. It was mental. It was even emotional. It paralyzed me. There isn't anything in this life that I felt that comes close to what I felt in there. Well, are you certain it wasn't just like you making yourself feel these things? Mason asked. I am 100% certain, Mason. Okay, so you're just gonna up and leave? Jay asked. Yes. Don't be so quick to leave, Greg. You have shit here you need to make right with Jack, Mason said. You made the order that killed his kid. My father looks nervous, puts his head in his hands. Listen, things do get bad. I'll be on the way with you. But what harm could he actually do? Mason asked. I think I'm gonna stay no matter what. I mean, I can't leave anyway because of Karen's cancer. Uprooting now would be a nightmare and getting new doctors. That would know what we're doing. I just don't know what to do, my father said. Nothing seems like the right thing because I'm at fault if something goes wrong either way. Mason pats his back. It's okay, man. I'm gonna get through this. Do you want to bring Gavin up to the Cafe Suite tonight? I can call Kate and she can whip up something for us. You too, Jay, if you and Karen are interested. Jay nods and smiles warmly. I think that would be nice. She's been aching to go out and meet, but the chemo's been a little tough on her lately. I'll see if she's up to it, he said. Mason turns to my father. How about you, Greg? I guess it could do us some good. Good. I'm gonna go and see her now, forego the phone call. Meet up at, say, 7? 7 works, my father said. Yeah, if she's up for it, we can make 7, Jay said. Alright, gentlemen, I'll leave you two to your own devices. 7 it shall be. He walks off, leaving the other twos behind. I stare at the scene and take Mason's seat next to my father. I try to put my arm on his shoulder, but I'm forbidden from interacting. I go right through him like he were some ghostly mirage. I ball my hand into a fist and holding it where his heart must be. How close I am to you, and you're years away from me. Dead, gone, and still here to be at the center of what I most desire. The ground starts to peel upward as if it were folding over itself like a sheet of origami. It coalesces at the top point into a singular glowing mass of white that spills new colors onto the ground below. I hold my arms above me to shield my face, but like everything here, it just flows through me. As voices and scents. I get a very strong hint of something nasty, and I turn over to retch. Out of the corner of my eye, I can see the familiar inside to the Republic Plaza building. Though this time I'm standing inside a room I haven't been in before. It's a different laboratory. I dive right in. Chapter 4, April 25th, 2007. Life has resumed at the Republic Plaza. A few days have passed since the meeting at the park. Jack is out of the hospital. It's a fact that confuses me, but I can do nothing but accept it. So what if the blast had looked like it caused fatal injuries? I was staring at him here, looking fully unharmed at the job. The only thing that would make sense would be that this wasn't just a few days after. But more than anything, I knew that. Couldn't speak to the source of the knowledge, it just felt like it was innate knowledge within me. The lab we were standing in housed the gigantic ship I originally woke up on. I found all the group assembled around the suspended vessel. I'm shocked to see my father still around after his talk about the East. Although from how he's crossing his arms, even I can tell it's weighing on his mind. Something must have gone wrong with his plan. I don't remember going out east. I wonder, did he leave without me? Where would I have gone? My memories of this time were foggy at best.
So, what's the big ship for?
David's voice pulls me out of my thoughts like they've harpooned me from myself. It was found just before it sank in the Atlantic Ocean. Jack began staring up at the vessel. Word has it was a supply ship from Japan selling it to someone on the East Coast. My father rubs his forehead and lets out a sound of mild confusion. Okay, that's great. What's it doing here?
Another project, it seems.
David said. Jack turns to David and gives him a firm nod. It's crazy looking at him here compared to a year in advance. It looks like he'd aged 5 years in that time. While he didn't have that extreme firmness that concerned me, there was something under the surface. I don't quite enjoy being in his presence, even if he can't know that I'm here. Word from up high said it was stocked with weapons meant to armor a resistance force somewhere in deep California. That obviously wouldn't do, so it was taken down and salvaged. Valhar didn't want any word of it getting out to the public because he didn't want them to alert of the existence of the resistance force. Sometime by the end of the year, we're supposed to take this thing and repurpose it for whatever they have in mind for it, Jack explains. I mean, we have until the end of the year, right? It's not like we need to worry about it now, Jay said. We aren't worrying about it, Jack said. His tone is curt. Period.
Well, we're going to have to at some point.
David scratches at the back of his head.
Great responsibility and all.
You seem to misunderstand, Jack said, and he turns to David. This ship is going to sit here, and we are not going to remove focus from the Radical-9. Jay began. If the president, fuck the president. This got all this attention immediately. I took a few steps back to watch the scene unfurl from a better angle. It's a waste of time, and seeing as we're all going to be trapped here for the next who knows how long, working our asses off, I would much prefer working on projects that yield actual results. Jack, you know that's not going to fly. My father gave an irritated look back. Lots of things that shouldn't fly do around here, Daniels. Or is it just the things you don't care about? What part of blowing me up was in the guidelines? My father had no response. Jack had a much easier punch to pull with the situation with his daughter. I thought that anger must have coursed through him and the conflicting feelings were doubling inside me. Interpersonal relationships aren't left up to guidelines, Jack. But everything that happened inside that chamber stopped being of my volition as soon as you picked up those flasks. A horrid look crossed Jack's face. You put me in there. You're project lead. This catastrophe was your fault. Jack, Greg, let's... Jay tries to stop the ensuing argument, but neither man is having any of it. We signed up individually for the risk this job has. We individually took an oath before signing on. Any one of us had the opportunity to duck out at any time. Anything between you and those elements remains so. Don't pin your guilt on me. You from the start have done nothing but belittle my intelligence and exclude me, Jack said, now stepping closer to my father.
Jack, I suggest you not...
Suggest nothing, David, Jack growls. We're going to continue the work here. We're all part of this. You're right. He gets a real nasty look in his dark eyes. We're going to get back in there, and we're not going to stop. We're not going to let anything distract us. He turns to my father. Unless there's someone else's kid here you want dead. That'd sure show us for being different, right? Okay, that's enough, Jay said, stepping in between the both of them. First, he looks to my father. Chill off upstairs, okay? My father walks a few paces out of sight. My focus is full on Jack. As Jay turns to him, I can see the holes he's digging into him with his stare. I think you need some time off to recover from your accident. Get some proper rest and get in the right headspace. Jack shakes his head. No, I'm not going home. You think I want to be there now? Jay looks at him and takes in a deep breath. I know how hard this must all be, but it isn't right for you to drown yourself here. Jack stares at Jay with a contemptuous look. A glass canister beside him flies across the room and smashes into the wall, shattering onto the floor below with a loud noise. I'm not going home. Even my father stops pacing and turns his gaze toward the broken canister and then over to Jack. I stare at the impossible. He wasn't looking at Jack when it happened, but I was. He didn't even touch it when it flew. It just did, all by itself. That accident, why my father was so scared of Jack. Was this what he was talking about? What he had such paranoid feelings about? Why was he still here if so? The questions are eating away at me. I want to scream at him and tell him to get me away from the situation as fast as he can. Get me away from this danger. I fall to my knees and know it's only going to get worse from here. My dad's dead after all. Jack's breathing heavy as he takes in every look one by one, his eyes traveling down the length of the room and finally finishing at my father. Stop staring at me and get back to work. He screams it and stomps out of the room. The others moving out of his way as he passes. In one fell swoop, there's a new lead on the project. He slams the door behind him and I'm brought toward him, out of the room with the others. Jack continues down the hall a few paces before nearly falling against the wall. He pulls himself up and leans against it, taking some of the weight off of his legs. He holds his hand up to his face and I notice the discoloration. They almost looked blue. He rolls up his shirt sleeves and I can see the veins in his arms almost popping out of his skin. The sight of it almost makes me vomit. The skin on his arms look similarly discolored. I see sweat bead down his forehead and onto the bridge of his nose. He's shaking and breathing heavier than he was being confronted. The sweat was pouring down him now. What is happening? What did that stuff do to me? He looks past his hands toward a framed picture on the wall. It was to be a portrait of a previous space crew that worked in the building. He seems to be shaking more, and I can see the portrait shaking on the wall. It falls to the floor, and I hear a voice from beyond the cold steel door.
Jack, you might want to come here, and fast!
Jack turns around to look at the portrait on the ground before looking back toward the door. What? He calls out, strained. He rasps as he tries to lick his lips. They're drier than a desert. He stands shakily to his feet, shifting to the door. He reaches down to move the handle, but the door opens as he does, and in comes face to face with David. The two almost collide. What is it? Jack said. Some color returns to his face, and David seems to not notice the change as he begins talking immediately.
Well, you do know of the map we have of this building, right?
David said, almost strained himself. Yeah, the digital real-time one on our tablets. What about it?
Well, Mason just pinged me. He was checking out something he noticed. Fucker wouldn't tell me what it is unless it came of something. And you know what? It did. There's a section of the building that was encrypted inside of the original file. It was basically like a digital band-aid and was used to cover the existence of a room up on the 38th floor.
But we're on the 39th floor, Jack said.
Yeah, so there's this small room on basically every floor above the 13th floor. There are usually some sort of service room for use by the staff. You know, excess generator rooms, storage, and other things like that.
Yeah, and? He was having a hard time imagining why it was so important that he needed to know this immediately.
And there isn't anything listed on the 38th floor for that area. It's almost as if it was skipped over or erased.
Well, I've walked through every floor of this building once, and I did recall one of them didn't have a door where I thought it'd be.
Yeah, but this encrypted section that Jay found was an update log. He found that at one point there was a room in that very location.
Okay, and? Jack asked, his interest shows finally.
And we all said that it might support us not trusting Valhart. There's something there that we're not supposed to know, something they had to cover up last minute.
Dave, I never said I didn't trust Valhart, Jay said. David turns around.
Jay, please. Important business. Adults are talking.
So you propose that we go and check out this mysterious room? Jack asked.
I do very so support that idea.
Jay turns his head to my father and quietly whispers, "What the hell is up with him?" My father's answer was a shrug, and it got me curious too. I know David acted a whole lot more kiss-assy in coming time, but was it something really so sudden? I would have to keep this in mind, or was that wise? Was it wise to worry about something like that now? I almost forgot about my situation back out there. Whatever the hell out there even is. Sure, it was cathartic getting to see this all play out, but what good would it actually do if I go back to there and end up getting piked or shot or well, anything really? I realized my inner conundrum, how much of a hypocrite I really was. I realized I'd been so desperate for answers I believed they'd be the last thing to satisfy me before my inevitable demise. And now I'm starting to learn I desire yet more. I always desire more, and know that will never not be true. Even if I find the answers to everything, I will keep desiring more. Was that desire what my father sought to satiate by becoming a member of this team? I wonder, if I had an opportunity like this to uncover the absolute unknown, would I take the same path? Would I end in the same place? Would I? Was such a dangerous question. Right, well, I do think we should check out this mysterious room, Jack said as he looks toward the others. If you wish to come and join us, feel free. Let's go, Dave. David nods, and I see the others follow him out of the room. Does anybody here know anything about who was using this space before we were contracted? Jack asked. Not a clue, Jay answers. I was the first one here. Well then, it looks like we might get a clue. I watched them as they walk outside of the room and into the hallway, following the path I had previously taken when I'd woken up. They walked past the spot where Grace was shot, and instantly a massive wave of guilt floods my system. Now, without the overbearing feeling of being shit on constantly, I have an opportunity to think about how I've been acting. Stupid. So stupid. There's no way I'd get a chance to do anything like my father did, not with how I acted. Oh, Jesus Christ, I actually left her to die. I know what I thought when doing it, but honestly thought because I was gonna die, it didn't really matter, that their lives didn't really matter. Of course they mattered. In the end, my lack of care is what brought me to the suffering I so despised. Maybe I really am dead, and this is some sort of purgatory, where I learned just how much of a piece of shit I'd get before I cast down to hell. They walk down the slope, and I see the spot in which the door to the incinerator room would have been. Now, there only rests a solid wall. Well, we got a wall. What does that do for us? My father asked. Hold on 1 second, Jack asked. He walks up to the wall and presses his face up against it, knocking his fist on it twice. It is hollow back there. Well, alright, so what do we do with that information? Just Just then, I hear a noise. I'm sure they do as well, as the focus is then diverted toward the wall. It sounded like the wall was tearing itself apart from the inside. I saw Jack's hand vibrating against the wall, shaking it and spasming as it tears itself open. The concrete wall shifting inside of itself and crumbling away. "Jack, what the hell's happening?" Mason asked. He doesn't answer. He only continues as the wall reveals itself completely. The torn away concrete falls to the ground around them. Just past it is the hallway I'd seen previously. "Well, what are you waiting for? We got some secrets to unfold," he said, walking inside.
Jack, that was...
David begins, stepping inside. "Something new, I know. I guess being thrown into the locked chamber with the Radical-9 did me some good, huh?" he said, almost monotone. "I don't like the sound of this," Jay whispers to my father. "I don't like the sound of you not moving," Jack bellows out. "Right," Jay said, shooting a look over to my father, who only seems to nod in response. Down the hallway they enter the incinerator room, and there I can see the skeleton of the girl that had passed away from the fire. It lies ominously on the ground as if it screams for help.
What the hell is this?
David asked, stepping into the room. "It sounds like a reason to doubt the good president, huh?" Jack asked, looking around the room. "Seems chunks of rock from Mars aren't the only thing being tested on here." He points to the jets. "Those are incinerators." "So whoever the skeleton belonged to was burned alive?" Jay asked. "Yes," Jack said. "They died a most gruesome death, it seems. All this covered up, most likely."
That's awful.
"Yes, it is quite tragic. What do you suppose we do about it?" my father asked. "Well, we can create a huge door warning the existence of this room. That's the first thing," Jay said. "And then we work to complete our research in Radical-9, Jack said, "without the aid of Veilheart. From this point, you fall rank in here under me. Understand?" "I still don't think that's a good idea," Jay said. "You will, in time. Don't worry, Jay. Together, we're not going to show that Veilheart that we're not going to be afraid of. We're not just disposable scientists who can be swept under a rug." I can feel the tension in the room as I feel you slide over me. Somewhere out in the real world, I can feel a throbbing pain in my leg. Pain draws me back to my body. Draws me back to the darkness. A message from the Creator. Chapter None. August 27th, 2021. It is in these dark passages I scribe my darkest regrets. I find the record of them equally troubling and pleasing. It is through the lens of my characters that I find peace within myself. Is that selfish of me? To create worlds and therefore flood them with problems, so I may find my own resolve? I can see so. And still, I love each of my creations, for the act of creating is why I myself was created. Until the end I shall do as I've done, and I see those for and against. I am not blind to the issues within the worlds I create. It is for them I give them adversity to overcome, to grow, become better, and to someday surpass me. The ultimate goal, I guess, is to create that which will destroy me entirely. And if I weren't cogent to that end, I would not write another word. To those who will inevitably make their mark, stand tall. Z1. Chapter 5. I'm sitting back in the darkness. My muscles feel weak, much weaker than I'd originally woken up. I'm breathing heavy as I stand up. I have to brace myself against the wall. Suddenly, it feels so much colder. I have to push myself off because it feels cold to the touch. But then I realize it's not the wall that's cold. My arms feel frozen. I'm shivering from head to toe. Where the hell am I? It's very much still unknown. I walk slowly with my arms outstretched like some sort of zombie. My hands are feeling a mixture of numb and on fire. The outside layer is burning while everything inside my flesh is just silent. Thoughts of all kinds and colors swim through my mind. Wait, no, they're more like hovering, flying, spinning. My hands go to my head. My entire brain feels like it's encased in a glass head. I'm floating among colorful fish. My right hand grasps the monitor as I slid my finger across it, looking for the button that turned it on last time. I find it at the bottom right corner of the monitor, and I see the whole thing light up green like before.
Well, hello again, Mr. Daniels. It is quite a pleasure to hear from you. I was quite worried you weren't going to make it.
Micah said. What wouldn't I make it from? All I've done since you last talked to me was sit in here and do nothing.
I wouldn't call what you've been doing nothing, Gavin. I call it quite intriguing, if anything, seeing as the past as clear as you do.
Wait, how do you know? I ask.
I know quite a bit about your situation, your dementia, and all of the other nasty physical afflictions. You don't have to worry about those anymore, though. So, I guess you can thank me for that.
Thank you. How would that even be possible? Now, thinking on it.
Yes, during your transport here, your cancerous mind has shed all of those nasty bits. It's taken some time for your mind to catch up, of course, so you may feel some temporary side effects.
I could almost sense the sardonic grin on the other side of the screen. I grabbed the side of the tablet with an iron grip. What do you mean by that? What do I still have?
That will be answered, but not right now. You will be the one to tell me that, Gavin.
What? How the fuck will I be able to do that if I don't know what it is?
You're going to look back into the past for your answer.
Look into... I was flabbergasted. I had barely begun to process the fact that these visions were real to my own mind, much less have them be confirmed by this fucking asshole on the other end of the call.
Your visions, you have not questioned their origin?
Their origin? You mean my dementia plus whatever Leto did to me? I can hear Micah laugh on the other side of the monitor.
No. Well, I mean, it is true your LBD did help the severity of your condition, and my nervous system helped you unlock that ability, but it was within you for a long time, a gift waiting to be delivered.
How the hell do you know so much about me?
Well, that's simple, Gavin. I'm your father.
What?
You should see the look on your face. God, I wish I had a mirror. But sadly, you'll have to try to make do with the screen there. That was hilarious. Imagine, right? Dad came back to life. Well, I guess I don't want to give everything right away.
This guy is a real piece of work.
Gavin, you have to trust that the order in which things are playing out are for your convenience. I wish for you to understand everything you need to, but to give it all away in the second act is just too much for you to handle.
Why don't you let me decide what the hell I can handle or not? I grumbled, feeling a slight headache coming on. But I can't tell, it's nothing like the consistent pain I've had for longer than I can remember.
Alright, you take the reins.
He laughs.
I'm going to go grab some lunch. You go at whatever rate you feel is good for you, and I'll be back when you've had your epiphany, or whatever.
That's not what I meant, asshole. I slam my fist against the side of the tablet. It stings, and I shake my hand in frustration.
Now, if you behave, maybe I'll toss you a burrito.
I hate Mexican food, I said.
I know.
The screen turns off. I'm left in the darkness, and I slide back down to the floor. How does he know me? He said he's somebody from my past. Is it possible I forgot him like I did Megan? Maybe he's that kid with the black hair who dumped his wad of gum into Megan's hair. I wouldn't put it past him to grow into such an asshole later on in life. But then again, his voice sounded a bit older than someone my age. And what if even how to see these visions? Surely they're not all connected. The very first time was when Megan touched my forehead. After that was when Grace, Tom, and I were falling out of the ship. Third time was when Megan gouged her eye out. Even though I didn't have a vision, walking out the Republic Plaza gave me that same sort of feeling as I fell. And the last time was when I woke up here. What's similar about each time? Well, two of them was when Megan touched me, but it didn't happen when Tom held me back or anything when I woke up the last time. The only thing I could come up with is fear. Each time something scared me more than a normal amount, my body reacted and threw me into that vision. Even waking up here and not knowing if I was alive or dead was enough to send my mind looking. Okay, but how do I trigger that now? I guess I have to scare myself, if that is even possible. I close my eyes and think deep down. I feel really stupid that I have to show you what I'm afraid of, but I feel a weird sense of fondness towards you. You've been here so long. Even if I don't realistically feel like you're here anymore, I still have the habit of speaking to you as if you were here. I guess my one true friend through all this. That's funny. My closest friend, and I don't even know your name, or anything about you, really. In some sick and twisted sense, I guess that's why I've been afraid of all along. Being alone. Not having anybody to acknowledge my own existence. I know I seem like such an asshole to everybody, but it's just really hard to be happy when your own parents desert you. Chapter 6. February 13th, 2008. I see Jay and my father back at the park I'd seen them at a year prior. This place seems to be their meetup of sorts. I wonder why I'm seeing events I never saw firsthand. Maybe it relates to how Micah said this was a gift. Jay, I can't do it anymore, my father calls out, focusing me in on them. I know, we need to do something. He's changed, Jay. There isn't any defending his actions anymore. Yes, I know. I only did because of how you treated Jack, you know? I was an asshole and wrong and all of that stuff. I get it. But that doesn't excuse the danger we're in now. The danger our families are in. Jay nods his head and looks up. His abilities are growing, changing more every day. Not for the better, it seems. He seems so much more angry now. Those outbursts of his can really hurt someone. Looks a bit tired, too, Jay said. Are you worried for his sleep patterns, Jay, at a time like this? No, not in that sense. I meant his body. Just seems tired from holding it all in, you know? Looks like he's had years added onto him. Yeah, I see that. Just 10 months he's enhanced telekinetic ability. That kind of power a human body takes a toll, you know? Yeah, my father said. There's something else I need to tell you, Jay begins. What is it? I've been meaning to say it for a while now, but time hasn't really been kind to us. I've been seeing things lately in my dreams. We all see things in our dreams, Jay. I think these are more than dreams is what I'm getting at. They're becoming more frequent and more detailed every night. Okay, what do you see? Terrible things, Greg. I hear screaming, and I see bloodshed. One of the big ones is that I see you and Lorraine being brutally murdered by Jack. I don't see the context, but I see her body burning, and I see bullets in your head. Oh, well, Jay, like I said, it's just a dream, my father said. Jay shakes his head. I'm not sure that they are, Greg. We both seen Jack do the impossible. He got that Radical-9 in the system. What if he wasn't the only one? You're implying that maybe the initial explosion wasn't enough to spread to just Jack? I think it's more than an implication. I mean, we opened that door to get him out of there. We were so worried about getting everybody out that we didn't really stop to think about what was actually spreading. The doctors didn't know what it was, my father said. Right, which makes sense because half of the stuff in it isn't even from this planet. But I managed to get a blood sample from Jack the other day. What? I asked, no need to worry. Told him I was going to study to see how much stronger he was getting. He seemed to like that idea. But anyway, I compared it to what I remembered as a sample of blood when it's all went down. And I have reason to believe that this Radical-9 is radioactive, Jay said. That's correct, then this is bad, my father said. Very, but it's weird. Weird how? So, in its purest form, the liquid that exploded all over Jack and gave him those burns are fully and wholly radioactive. The mixture caused it also to turn into a gas, which spread through the building, also radioactive. Yes, I know how this stuff works, Jay. That's not the part that's weird. What's weird is that when it entered Jack's body, it sort of attached itself to his innards, like a parasite. But parasites need to have some form of life, do they not? Yes, that's why I said some form of. It seems this stuff is more mysterious than we thought. It's completely bonded to his DNA. So, this stuff possibly gets into the air after we open the door. It could have spread to everyone in the building. Thankfully, I don't think it had enough time to get outside before the lockdown. That means Gavin too. Fuck. My father runs his hands through his hair and takes in a deep breath. Yes, unfortunately, I do believe that the children are in a similar situation. Okay, but then why would Jack be the only one to exhibit these powers, his telekinesis? My father asked. Well, it's possible he had the greatest amount of contamination, considering he was right there. But I think it might be more than telekinesis. I think he might have a healing factor. He recovered from his burns to the point where it doesn't even look like he had them, faster than anyone ever expected. Guess that makes sense. I don't like the sound of it, but it makes sense. I do think that you should leave. Take Gavin and get him far away, while you can. What about you and Karen? I can't move her long term. She's in the middle of her chemotherapy. I don't know if we'll be able to afford that if I don't stay. Yeah, but what happens to you here? I'll get through it. Plus, I'm gonna try to convince Mason and Dave to leave too. Good luck with Dave. He's so far up Jack's ass, I don't even think he's his own person anymore. Gonna try. Elena and Andy deserve to be away from all this, and if Dave doesn't want to leave, then I'm gonna go straight to her. If you can wait a day, I can have Mason accompany you guys. I was gonna ask him to come here, but he's really busy with Jack at the moment. I think they're working on building some sort of machine. Yeah, I can wait up for him. Gonna swing by the apartment before I head to work. I have some things I need to take care of anyhow, my father said. Jay nodded his head. Okay, going in now. See you when you get in? Yeah, stay safe, man. You too. The vision changes. Jay dissipates into the void, and the park around them melts into the apartment I lived in as a kid. My father is up and making his way through the small living room. He goes past the small CRT TV in the corner, and putting on his jacket and his suit and straightening his tie. I see as he walks past my old room and opens the door slightly, as if to not wake me inside. I see the younger me cuddled up underneath my sheets. This is me 10 years ago. Talk about surreal. I see a smile on my father's face as he closes the door quietly and grabs his cell phone off the arm of the love seat, drops it into his pocket, and takes a deep breath before walking to the other side of the room, opening the front door and stepping out. I follow him as he makes his way out of the hallway and down the stairs. He used to live on the second floor of the apartment, so I had the basic core side of the building memorized. My father walks out of the front door and begins walking toward the parking garage. Fancy place, huh, Greg? A voice calls out from behind. My father turns and sees Jack leaning up against the wall of the building. He's got his suit all nice and pinned up, along with wears a sort of scowl. Jack, I wasn't expecting to see you here. I don't believe I've ever told you where I live. You didn't, but you didn't need to. My father stops fully and turns around to face him. I don't understand, Jack. Jack laughs and walks up close to him, uncomfortably close. Puts his hands on my father's shoulders and gives him a look I can't quite describe with words. Looks like a laughing hyena crossed with a bear. Didn't expect you to, good friend. Couldn't expect that with how closed off your mind is. My father backs off, letting Jack's arm fall to his side. The hell do you mean closed? You're simple, Greg. In some cases, that isn't bad. But in the work we're doing, it isn't enough. We don't need simple. We don't need you. Don't bother coming to work today. Are you threatening me? In some aspects, yes, I am. You see, I've been seeing things lately. Glimpses and snapshot of things not yet. It was all very confusing at first, you see, but someone who's gone above simple, I was able to figure it out. And what the hell did you figure out? My father asked. He has the same temper I do. I can see that clearly within him. I almost miss him. Jack grins. My problem, at least one of them, is you, Greg. You are one of my problems. You made me your problem by coming here, Jack, my father said. Jack shakes his head. No, I did not, Greg. I came here because you are a problem. The good president didn't send me into that test chamber a year ago, Greg. That was you. You sent me in there and didn't care if I lived or died. My father's anger lessens slightly. I can see the guilt in his eyes. You're correct. I was save it. I didn't come here to see you cry. At least, not in that way. No, I have to thank you, because in some fucked up manner, that is the moment that decided the rest of my life. And you're no longer going to be a part of it. What does that mean? It means I'm here to be generous. You know of my abilities, so you're going to leave this town, this city, even this state. Now. You're insane, my father said. Almost dying does that to you. I'm not going. Well, I would have guessed you would have stood your ground. Listen, I understand your bravado. You're the head of a very prolific yet at the same time secret band of scientists. I get the machismo, but honestly, it's only going to get your kid killed. You're not touching Gavin. That's the best part. I don't need to. I can feel my grip around his throat right now. 1/10 of the mental muscle in your boy's neck is as good as snapped. My father puts down his arms. He looks at Jack with less fight and more contempt. Now, you're gonna leave right now. No packing, no saying goodbye. Now, you're going to reach into your pocket, take out your cell phone, and smash it. If I'm going, I'm taking Gavin with me, my father said. Those aren't the terms of this negotiation, Greg. I would have thought you would have cared the littlest about his life. Or is it the same as how you saw Megan? My father moves to argue, but even I can tell it's not going to do any good. If you want your son to live, you will smash your cell phone and leave now. My father's face beads with sweat. What should I do about money for the trip? Jack smiles a vicious look. You've got a nice suit on. Improvise. My father swallows hard as he reaches into his pocket. His hand shakes terribly. That's it. Now smash it. He does. He throws it against the ground. The flip phone bounces off the concrete and flips into the air, spinning towards the floor it lands again. He goes down to reach for it to throw it again, but it lifts off the ground before he can get it. Jack lifts it high into the air and flings it to the sky. I look to see where it goes, but I lose it in the clouds of the cold morning. Now go. My father silently walks backward. I can see him eye the side of the apartment where my bedroom is. The vision begins to fade to black. I feel a heavy sort of weight in my heart as I process all of what happened. My father loved me. He didn't want to leave. Jack made him. My father made Jack. There are so many conflicting emotions of hate and love in my heart. The web of my life goes back to before I was even remotely aware of anything. Everything is black. Chapter 7, May 5th, 2008. I see my father. He looks like he hasn't eaten in a few days. He no longer wears a suit, but instead a short-fit black t-shirt that said, "Up yours," with two hands flipping off everyone and everyone emblazoned on it, alongside a pair of khaki shorts. He's on a city sidewalk, I don't know where, but it's a few months after Jack threatened him. People pass by him in their everyday manner. I hear some people whisper, "Dude's on drugs," before laughing it off and walking away forever. I want them to stop. I want them to stop talking about him like that. It isn't right. It isn't. He moves along still, walking towards something. He reaches the end of the street and turns the corner. I rush up to follow him. The crowd doesn't slow me down one bit as I walk through them, since they're only a memory. Not my memory, granted, but to all the same effect. Follow my father to a large building. Not quite a skyscraper level or anything near the height of the Republic Plaza, but that doesn't mean it isn't big itself. I'd guess around 15 floors. Maybe he finally made it to New York, and this is that Eastern Branch, the freelance scoop I keep hearing about. Maybe I'll get to see my mother. My mother who apparently cheated on my father. Right. It's okay. I'm okay. She's dead now anyway. They both are. Nothing to worry about. Just gotta learn what I have to and get out of here. My father walks through the front door, not unlike that of a zombie, I must say. I followed him inside and noticed that we're the only two of us who would be around. He's the only one that's around. The entrance is decorated with all kinds of tacky paintings that scatter the wall, probably hundreds of years old, alongside a very cheesy red carpet that makes me feel like I'm walking down, expecting to get photographed. He stumbles over to the front desk, looking like he's about to collapse. He reaches over the side of the desk and picks the phone up off the dock and presses the intercom button. Yes, will Mrs. Lorraine Daniels come to the front desk to help her husband get their son back? He hangs the phone up and leans against the desk, breathing heavily. The next minute feels like an eternity. I see the elevator doors at the end of the hall open up, and inside stands a finely dressed woman with curly blonde hair. She wears a look of shock as she exits, quickly moving to my father. This must be my mother. I don't recognize her at all. "We're in trouble," my father said. "Oh, I could see that. Where the hell's Gavin? Why'd you come here? Where's..." Please, not a million questions at once. I feel like a train hit me, then went in reverse to finish the job. Can I get something to eat and something to wear? Got a lot to tell you. "Thought you didn't want to see me anymore," she said. I don't care about that. Current matters supersede my personal feelings toward you, Lorraine. Now please, may we go upstairs? Yeah, gather the others to come and help also. Good, we'll need their help. The vision fades once more, changing shape. A few weeks now seem to have passed. My father sits alone at the desk as he works furiously, writing something down at a breakneck pace. He's out of the non-fitting clothes and back into a look more like him. Fancy suit which makes him look like he's about to seal a business deal. Greg, I hear a voice say, but I'm unsure of who it is. Oh no, I'm working. I know, but it's... He looks up momentarily. I see a short-haired woman standing close to him, her suit about as sharp as her eyes. Samara, I really can't afford to not be working right now. She walks over and places a hand on his. Listen, I know it's hard losing your son the way you did. And I know Lorraine's as torn up over it just as much as you are. We all here feel for you. Thank you, Samara, my father said. But the reason I came over here is because I got someone up front who said he knew you. You want to come and confirm for a second? Okay, sure. Sorry for snapping earlier. It's okay. I understand you're under a lot of pressure to figure out how to stop Jin. We all are. My father stands up and nods his head. Yeah, if I could just figure out the nature of his healing factor. It's my main setback. I don't have any updated samples of his blood, so I have no idea how he's changed in the past few months. I understand it's a tough situation. I believe we'll find a solution, all of us, together, she said, motioning her arms. Shall we go greet our guest? My father nodded his head. Yes, let's. They head past the cluttered array of desks inside the new place. Well, new to my father. They find the staircase at the end of the cluttered room. In some weird trade-off of roles, I feel the need to scold my father and his organization like he would have with me. Downstairs, I see a familiar face waiting, in nearly the same spot I'd seen my father crumpled over. It's Mason. You're here, my father said, walking over and pulling him into a hug. I could say the same about you, old friend, Mason said. So, I'm gonna assume you two know each other. Samara laughs. Yeah, he's from West Coast. My father laughs also. He turns back to Mason, letting go. Where's Kate? Safe. She's actually back at the hotel we're staying at. I have to ask you though, Jay mentioned you'd be waiting up for us. What happened there? Stopped by your place and it was completely empty. Jack happened. The day after Jay talked to me about leaving, Jack showed up at my place with no warning or anything. I didn't ever give him my address, Mason. He said he'd been seeing things and needed to take me out of the equation. Couldn't tell anyone else or he would have killed Gavin. I see. About lines up. Greg, he's gotten stronger. More out of control, Mason said. Well, okay. Why don't we head upstairs? You can meet the rest of the skeleton crew and tell us all about it. Hope you can spare some time. Yeah, of course. Kate's ordering room service and got a lineup of movies on the pay-per-view. Come into some money, Mason? You could say that. Well, if we're gonna go, I'll call everyone to the meeting. I'm Samara, by the way. Samara Knight, she said, extending her hand to Mason. Well, it's definitely nice to meet you, but I wish it could have been under better pretenses. Mason smiles. My father looks towards Samara. What does he mean? Well, I mean, I didn't know who he was at first, but everything's been so stressful lately, and so... well... She said I better not be with Jack unless I wanted to be neutered like a dog. Mason laughs. My father laughs too. Neutered? That's the least threatening way to say that. I'm not good under pressure with people. Never have been. Doubt that'll change anytime soon. Well, at least you're at terms with it, Mason said. Samara nods her head. Well, gentlemen, what are we waiting for? My father looks towards Mason, then nods his head toward the staircase they descended from. They quickly begin walking toward the stairs and go up even further. The meeting room's on the second floor, a small square room that looks like it's been hit by a budget-cut hammer. It's got a small rectangular table fit for a church benefit, that official meeting room with small folded chairs scattered about. Nice place, Mason said, looking around. Yeah, it's small, but it works. Is this really what Valhart's been funding? I feel like there was more thought put into a children's birthday party. Well, they don't study isotopes of human genomes at birthday parties, Samara jokes. Hope not. That'd take going to the swimming pool a whole new level, Mason laughs. Samara and my father stare at him, not getting it. Gene pool, guys, come on. My father looks at Samara. I forgot to mention, he does that sometimes. Make bad jokes? I think that's an insult to bad jokes, my father said. Okay, well, let's skip the part then where I pull out the real jokes and get on with this, Mason said, looking at Adata. Alright, well, I'll be right back. Stay right here, Samara nods, walking out of the room. There's an awkward silence in the room for a couple of seconds. If I can I would break the tension by making a stab at Samara since she left the room or something similar. Actually, that's untrue. If I could interact with this world right now, I'd hug my dad, then go hug my mom and pretend none of this ever happened. It's good to see you, Mason, my father said. You too, Greg. I'm sorry I didn't find out sooner about you and Gavin. If I'd known, I would have done something, Mason said. I know, and I would have found a way to call you guys if I had the opportunity to. Mason nods. I know, we're gonna find a way to stop him, I promise. I see the door behind them swing open, just barely clipping the chair that sits right in front of my father. I see Samara on the other end walking in, 2 older guys, and my mother walking in behind her. First guy is big, like, really big. I'm sure he would smell like fish if I was actually there. His hair bunches up around the side of his head, conveniently leaving a bald spot right at the top. The second guy is more lean, gelled up hair, and I'm pretty sure the police would have to confiscate it on the grounds of it being a deadly weapon. Maybe he can share some of his hair with the other guy. Okay, everybody, this here is Mason. Samara begins. Radica. Mason finishes. Hold on a second. I thought you were familiar, the gelled guy says. You were a part of Just Cause, weren't you? Mason looks closer at gel guy, and I can see his eyes widen. Barry, what the hell are you doing here? I could ask the same of you. Looks like the good old US of A doesn't care about us returning vets, huh? Does everybody here know each other and I'm just out of the loop? Samara asked. Navy Lieutenant Mason Radica served with me in Panama back in 1990, Barry said. And Army Captain Barry Rainwater. You almost got your leg blown off near the Marriott Hotel. Guys, I really would love to hear about you catching up on old times, but we have more pressing matters here, the big guy said. My father moused to Mason. You were in the Navy? He nods tersely. Okay, Barry here is our head engineer. If anything goes wrong with our equipment, he's the guy you go to. He's a real whiz with electronics, Samara said. And this is Sal. He's our lead on microbiology. It's good to meet you. Sal Moon, as in moon. Please don't mispronounce me and confuse me for the fish, Sal said with a heavy Middle Eastern accent. It's nice to meet you all as well, Mason nods. And I'm sure Greg's told you all about me, my mother said. I'm Lorraine. She extends her hand. I've heard you are really smart and good at what you do, Miss Daniels. He shakes it. This seems to make her smile, if slightly. I could see my father smile a little too. I'm here from the Western Branch, same like Greg, because of Jack Adata. I presume you've gotten everyone up to speed so far, Greg? Mason asked. My father nods. Excellent, Mason said. Yeah, that slimy ass clown is going to be buried 6 feet under if I can get my hands on him, Sal said. Right, well, that will be a little hard considering the injuries he sustained in the past year have been able to heal at an accelerated rate. His body suffered a 4th-degree chemical burn when all of this started, and he came back like it was a mosquito bite. We cannot, under any circumstances, take this lightly. Okay, and you mentioned earlier he was getting stronger. Mind explaining? My father asked. Yes, this compound, Radical-9. We named it after the elements that melded together before they exploded out. Radium, dichlorine, calcium, nitrate. These 4 created the monster we know as Jack Adata today. When he first was irradiated, we didn't know the scope of what he would become. Almost. Almost? Barry asked. What do you mean, almost, Mason? Greg, when we took Jack to the hospital, and you were in the room with David, you told me about this feeling you had, correct? My father nods his head. Yeah, I was in there and I felt all crippled from head to toe. For 10 or so minutes, it felt like all of Jack's anger and despair was pouring out of him and into my soul. I still remember how cold to the bone I felt. I believe this was the first instance of his enhanced psyche reaching out. The ability to project emotion onto others like that. It's astounding, Mason said. And come to think of it, it was after that moment that Dave started acting strange, as if he'd been Jack's right-hand pup, my father said. Maybe he's felt whatever you felt too, Sal asked. Maybe it hit him harder and he got scared. It's possible, my father said. Then there was the freak out in the lab, Mason begins. Jay, our friend back in Denver, was asking Jack if he was alright. He was acting all strange and paranoid, so it seemed okay to ask. Jack merely had a meltdown and threw a glass canister from his side without even touching it. Later on, he's used his ability to telekinesis to rip through chunks of the wall inside of our building to find a room hidden away in everything but the blueprints. So it's more than what you imagined at the beginning, Samara said. Way more. That was after a few days, mind you. Let's take it a year after. His body is dying, plain and simple. It can't handle that Radical-9 that's in its system, much less the fact that it seems to be multiplying. at an exponential rate. The more that multiplies, the stronger his abilities become. The stronger he becomes, the scarier he is. The less like himself he is, the less his body can handle it. Okay, so the solution just seems to be to wait it out, right? Eventually it'll be too much and he'll just keel over. Am I right? Barry said, leaning against one of the chairs, supporting his head up with his right arm. Initially, that's what I thought too, but there's a big problem with that, Mason said. What's that? My father asked. Radical-9's a very reactive compound, as we've seen firsthand, Craig. If his body shuts down from all of it in his systems, it is possible he will become a makeshift bomb. What? The concentrated amount of Radical-9 in his system will get thrown together and someone as big as him be enough to go nuclear. Just think of how badly we were hit the very minimum this stuff has to offer. So basically, our options are to wait and die, or attack him and die, Sal said. My father runs his hands through his hair. No, I'm not letting that happen. He isn't either. Jack knows about this possibility. I was the one who helped him find it, in an effort to see if he'd allow me to find a cure. Did he? Hell no, I'm here now, aren't I? He scrapped my project and began researching ways to prolong his life rather than fix it. Do you know any of what he's doing with that? My father asked. I left before it came together, but I think he may be using the kids for something. Jennifer, Andrew, and I'd assume Gavin as well as Nadia at that. Okay. Use them for what? My mother asked. Mason hesitates. I think he might be tested on them. He had me work on these. They look like these metallic pods. Sort of something you'd freeze somebody in. I left after that, but I think he might be adding in controlled doses of Radical-9. He might be testing and irradiating them with the compound. Why would he do that? That's insane! My father yells. He realizes he did. I don't know why, but I have a guess, but it's pretty far out there, Mason said. I think we left far out there when this guy started moving shit with his mind, Barry said, crossing his arms and pacing the room. Always the angsty one, it seems. I think he might try to go one step further with projecting his emotions out. He might be trying to project his consciousness out onto an air of sorts, Mason said. You're right, that is out there, Barry said. You mean, like, take over their bodies? Lorraine asked, visibly horrified at the thought. The kids are Radical-9 in their system. We had that checked. I looked myself. It's much less than the amounts in Jack and even you and I, Greg. But I believe you think he means they are suitable to have the perfect amount gassed into them so they can have the power that he has without the drawback of physical decomposition. If that's the case, then we need to do something. We need to find a way to stop him without triggering the reaction inside his body. And we need to find out how to get the kids safe from him, my father said. How do we do that? My mother asked. That's the question of the century now, isn't it? Chapter 8, January 28th, 2014. I'm back in the Republic Plaza. I'm looking into a cleared out space with 4 metallic pods that almost look like cocoons in the middle of the room. Machines that look like generators to set cocoons sit off to the side. The wiring covers the ground. I see that the machines have circular windows on the front of them. Off to the side behind a barrier I can see Jack, Jay, and a large man I'd seen back in New York, Sal Moon. It looks like they finally finished the transfer process from him back then. My question is he someone Jay can trust down here? Alright, Sal, just hurry it up, will ya? This isn't the time for doubt. We need to succeed. We can't do that if you hesitate. Right, sir, Sal mumbles. Go ahead and situate them nice. Looking at him, Sal looks himself like he's stressed off a couple of pounds. His face is wrinkled and full of exhaustion. I see him leading a small child by the hand past the barrier. I see the leftmost pod open up. The door of it swings widely open. On the inside, I see a small area with straps attached that look like they're meant to restrain something down. Or someone. He leads the young child into the machine. Can't be more than 5. He looks up at Sal with a wide-eyed curiosity. Sal does everything in his power to keep away, but he can't stop from looking at the child and takes in a deep breath. I hear a knocking sound from the machine directly next to it. Inside the window, I can actually see someone inside of that one. Looks to be an older boy, maybe around 15. He's pounding on the shelled cocoon, and I can almost see tears in his eyes. Sal straps the young boy in place and shuts the door, locking it into place. He walks back to the barrier, closing his eyes and finding it hard to breathe. Okay, there. Jay, bring Sarah and John in next. Yes, okay, Jay struggles to say. I see Jay walk toward the pods. He carries 2 infants with him. This needs to stop, I hear Jay think. He lowers the first child into the pod and it seals itself up. He looks at the second child's eyes for a moment before lowering them into the pod. Jay slowly walks back behind the barrier. He looks like a man who's had the soul sucked out of him. Let's get this started, Jack said, and he presses a button at his side.
Radical-9 exposure number 2. Subjects are in place. Date, January 28, 2014. Time, 5:56 a.m.
The 4 pods are now filled, and they begin glowing on their rims. The chrome face of the metal is a shiny silver, but the edges glow with a sort of neon-like gas that illuminates in all sort of different colors. The pods begin making a sort of mechanical ringing sound, and then the windows of the pods begin to fog up. It seems they're being filled with the Radical-9. Mason's theory was right. The sound from the machine intensifies and grows even louder. The neon-like lights on the rims of the pods have grown in intensity and shines brightly, and then I hear screaming. It comes from the leftmost pods, the ones with the 2 older kids. Their pods begin letting out steam and smoke, and then I hear a small but confined boom. I see the 2 windows get sprayed with a dark red liquid. Blood. I hear a frantic panic come from behind the barrier. I see Sal running up to the pods frantically. Jack! My boys! I told you this would happen! Sal screams. He turns around and looks toward him. You monster! You wanted to go through with it anyway, and now they're gone forever. What the hell is wrong with you? The vision begins to lose its clarity, but I can see Sal being lifted into the air. He's grasping at his throat. Test 2 is a slight failure. Recommencing the test for those that survived. His body is lifeless. The force of his body hitting the wall is something I'm not going to forget for a long time. Are there any objections, Jay? Jack's voice asked calmly. Jay turns his head slowly to Jack, his eyes still wide. You know, I could easily just kill your boy here and move on with Sarah. It makes no difference to me. Your boy lives because you've stayed by my side. No objection, sir, Jay said weakly. Great. We go in again. Like a hurricane, I'm sent through the cycle as the world around me breaks down. Everything around rebuilds itself to completely fully seen. I look around and see Mason alone. He's curled up against a wall in what looks like a bank of wherever he is. He's shaking tremendously, and I can't tell if he's cold or got some kind of spasm going on. Maybe both. I can see a phone clutched in his hand, raised up to his ear. No, Kate, I can't come home. I need to do this. I need to. Please stop interrupting me. There are a few seconds of silence. No, I'm fine. I promise that I'm fine. I swear, Kate, I need to speak to the president. I need to. He hangs up the phone and sets it down beside him. His arm shakes wildly. I can see his breathing is short, and he looks like he's been sweating in the storm. I'll be home for supper. He slurs as he makes his way to his feet. Sweat is pooling under both of his arms, staining the dress shirt and staining fast. His face is redder than any tomato I've seen. It looks like it takes him an extreme amount of effort to even get moving. I see the cell phone vibrating on the ground beside him. He kicks it away and makes a show of it by lifting his leg up into the air after. I said I'll be home, and I will, because I promised I would, he said. His speech has turned into a big slur. What the hell's happened to him? Mason begins walking down the street, and I get a better view of what is ahead of him. I see the United Nations Conference building in front of me. Mason keeps walking closer, reaching just past the Secretarial building and finding his destination, the General Assembly. I see him step closer toward the entrance, closer and closer as I see his arm spasming by his side. He walks right in, no knocking, no hesitation. I follow him in, walking through the doors as if they were nothing. The main chamber is much larger than I imagined. I remember reading about this place in some of the magazines they had back at the orphanage. This was the place where things went down. 193 members all coming together to show just maybe we could work together to ensure peace. Now, of those 193 people that used to fill this hall, only 14 sit at the table now. I understand. I heard you gentlemen hired scientists to study foreign material, Mason yells out towards the men in some of the room, all situated, facing one another. I see 4 of them on the end, draw guns. Excuse me, but we're having a private conversation. May I ask you to leave? A voice I clearly recognize. It's Hal Valhart. Mason takes a few steps down the alley. You brought us together to research, to examine, to experiment. We were desperate for cash and knew we would do it. Should we fire, sir? One of the men at Valhard's side asked. Hold on a moment, Stan, Valhard said. You're one of the Prometheans. I'm one of the ones who can't stand what's in me. I feel so very hot, and this all needs to stop. I know you know about Jack. Valhard's expression seems to change. He's a rogue factor, something that cannot be stopped. No, you need to stop him. He's gonna kill us all. He's already killed Greg. I cannot do that, Mr. What was your name again? Doesn't matter. Why won't you help? Because this is how things were supposed to happen. Direct orders from the Queen herself. Mason looked like his heart just broke in two. Something inside of him snapped, surely. You may fire now, Stan. Yes, sir. I see the sparks from the muzzle as the bullets shoot out. Time seems to slow for a second, but speed as they blow through Mason's body. They must be very large caliber bullets as they send Mason back. His blood drips to the floor. It's then that I see his face turn red, much redder than I've seen anyone ever. Mason said before I can see his skin breaking away. His skull underneath screams out as the entire building erupts in white glow. Valhard and his men begin screaming, but only for a second. Their screams are lost to the eternity in the blaze. Through the dust and debris, all I can see around me is debris. The greater chunk of New York City was leveled in seconds. I look back to where Mason sat as he died. The shadow of his body is burned into the ground. The same seems to be for Valhard and his 13 men. Shadows forever marked onto the earth as Mason, the exploding man, erased them nearly from existence. But that means there's a bigger problem at hand. Valhard wasn't discussing the poor here. He wasn't working to make things better. He was ensuring that Jack became what he did. But why? Why would he want for that any other reason than to see the world burn? The Queen. He said it was a direct order. But why? How could she have known this would happen? So many questions that don't have answers. The vision fades to black. I feel a similar pain in my muscles. I open my eyes to darkness, but it isn't dark for long. I hear a loud mechanical scraping noise. Light fills into the small room, and I can see exactly how small the space I'd been confined to is. I'd barely have enough room to stretch out if I sprawled out across the floor. The light source blinds me. It's pure white, spilling in through the doorway now open.
Come on out. It's time we had a chat.
I hear Micah's voice, and it's not through the small computer terminal behind me this time. I stand slowly, my legs getting used to being used once more. I have to hold myself up with the wall to get myself fully. I step outside of the room and let the large height fill over me. Blinding light fills my vision, and I have to brace my hand over my eyes to reduce the pain. I can feel the heat resonating off of the lights above me. Then I realize I might not be going crazy. But the outside of the tiny room is significantly warmer than the inside. I'm standing on metal. The entire floor is metal. And so are the walls. It looks to be some sort of facility, but I couldn't describe where.
The lights are used to keep this place warm in addition to well lit. It's not like we can depend on the outside for heat.
Micah said to my side. I turn to see him. I'm facing an older version of myself. I recognize me immediately. My eyes go wide and weakness overtakes me in full.